Today we're going to learn about what happened in the heart of Dublin. This will be a story of the notorious Kinahan vs. Hutch feud, and we'll go through the timeline of the killings that were related to this huge rivalry. This is not your typical family politics. Instead, it's something that's actually hard to believe. In case you're unaware, the Kinahan and Hutch family are some of the most prominent Irish criminal gangs involved in various large-scale activities. First, let's talk about the Kinahans. If you ever take the name Kinahan in front of anyone in Dublin, they will probably shiver from head to spine. These guys are deeply involved in the Underworld with a history of organized crime. The group is led by Christopher Kinahan, who is believed to be like a godfather of their empire. He is the actual mastermind behind pulling the strings of puppets in his team. Being old in the game, their name has gone far beyond the streets of Dublin. Hutch are yet another formidable presence in the Dublin underground, and Jerry Hutch currently serves as the leader of this group. Jerry is the street-smart individual who is able to conduct all of the street goons, while Christopher Kinahan is the puppet master. Just for a moment, picture the street as the magnificent Hutch dynasty. They have also been in the game for a considerable amount of time and should not be taken lightly. But how did the blood-soaked feud start between the two, and what was it that actually happened? It is clear that the conflict that arose between these two families did not occur overnight. It is the consequence of years of competition, power battles, and of course, control over the drug trade in Dublin among the various parties involved. Although it has been there for a longer period of time, it did not become widely known until around the year 2015. It would be the assassination of Gary Hutch in Spain that we would identify as the single most important event that led to the outbreak of war. Gary was the nephew of Jerry Hutch, a figure also known as the Monk, who was believed to be the leader of the Hutch crime family. The occurrence of this tragedy was like an atomic bomb that would shatter Dublin's underworld to its very foundations. Since then, the city has turned into a battlefield for those two opposing factions to combat one another. But who murdered Gary Hutch? Were the Kinahans involved in it? Well, it was a quiet morning in September 2015. Gary was at his apartment in the Costa del Sol. He went for a walk in the serene surroundings to enjoy the warmth of the day. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared and shots echoed, disrupting the peace and calm. He fell to the ground, marking the beginning of a chilling chapter that sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld of Dublin. There are very few people who are aware of the fact that Daniel Kinahan, the son of Christopher Kinahan, was also shot outside of his flat in August of 2014, prior to the murder of Gary. Additionally, it was later reported that he had been shot by accident. On the other hand, it was not possible to discover with absolute certainty the circumstances that surrounded this incident. Interestingly, the Hutch confessed their mistake and tried to calm things down with the Kinahans. Their faction even paid €200,000 in compensation for the shooting. Dapper Don made a deal with Gary Hutch upon his return to Spain, but that was all planned for an act of revenge which ended up in Gary's murder outside his apartment. Well, Gary's murder set the stage for a series of criminal activities, and the feud became more intense. The aftermath was 18 murders. Yeah, you heard that right. One life taken resulted in 18 deaths. A brutal tit-for-tat turned the streets of Dublin into a war zone. Shootings, bombings, innocent killings, whatever could have happened. This wasn't just a feud. It was more like the beginning of a war. So back in January of 2016, Darren Kearns, Hutch's associate, was killed. He came back to his car after having dinner with his wife at a restaurant above a pub when a gunman came and shot him dead. It was brutal for sure, but it didn't stop on the other side as well. It was a high-profile hit that pushed this feud into the headlines. The audacity left everyone wondering, when would it end? But it never ended. In fact, the list of murders goes on. In February of 2016, it was Eddie Hutch Sr., the monk's brother, who was attacked in his very own home. Suddenly, the light of the hallway became dim and shots echoed, and Eddie fell victim to the violence of Dublin's ongoing feud, Kinahan's versus Hutch's. Not long after this, Vinnie Ryan became a victim as well. And to make things worse, he was killed in front of his partner outside his girlfriend's house in Finglas. The reason Kinahans killed him was that he was a suspect in Daniel Byrne's murder. Because he had the same weapon that was used to kill Byrne, the Kinahans were not willing to let it go. Then comes a famous businessman, Noel Duggan, who was somehow related to Hutch's and was killed by Kinahans outside his house in March 2016. Following that, Martin O'Rourke was killed, mistakenly being identified as a Hutch associate even though he really wasn't one. This incident in April 2016 created chaos among the public about law enforcement. Another one got killed when Kinahans wrongfully identified Michael Barr as a gunman involved in the killing of David Byrne and was shot dead in a pub. However, it was later known that he was not present during Byrne's murder. The nephew of Eddie Hutch was also not left alone. He got killed in May 2016 near his home. Then came David Douglas, also known as Dougie, who was killed in July 2016 by the Kinahans, as he had some connections with the Hutch faction. Later revealed as an identity mismatch, David was killed while having a vacation with his family in Majorca, Spain. A very close friend of Gary Hutch was thought to have deep connections with the Hutch family and was also brutally killed. The person had no connections in the underworld, but became a part of the feud just due to his friendship. Another Hutch associate, James Mago, was shot in May 2017. He was killed while filling his car at the gas station. Fortunately, he survived. Shortly after, a silent death dawned upon Michael Kao. He was killed in the morning when he got in his car for a new job. However, nobody heard the sound of gunshots, and his body was found a few hours after he was killed. Shortly after this, the son of Noel Kerwin, Kane Kerwin, was double-crossed. A year after his dad's death, he was also shot dead. He was invited to meet someone and got himself killed there. Following this, the other nephew of the Hutch leader got killed. His family has also appealed for compensation for his killing. He was only 27. Can you imagine? And finally, Jason Molyneux got killed at his house when he had just returned from the funeral of Derek Coakley. He was killed on January 30th, 2018, while Coakley was shot on January 29th. While the list doesn't end here, these were the most prominent and closest people to have gotten killed in the aftermath. There were also dozens of other innocents that found themselves tied to this mess and had their lives turned upside down. For similar content, don't forget to check out the other videos that appear on your screen.